You know what's wild? Out of absolutely nowhere, Kawasaki went and resurrected a nameplate that for a solid chunk of the 2000s genuinely made folks a little uneasy. And not in a ooh scary way, more like a this thing might actually try to bite me kind of way. If you threw a leg over a motorcycle back in say 2005-ish, then you already have a pretty good idea of what I'm getting at. Because the mean streak wasn't your run-of-the-mill cruiser, not even close. It was basically Kawasaki's not-so-subtle middle finger to Milwaukee. Like, oh, you think you build tough bikes? Hold our beer. Massive low-end grunt, murdered-out components before that was even a buzzword, and a frame that seemed to come straight from the factory with a chip on its shoulder. And now, 2026 rolls around, and bam! The name is back on the table. Only this time, it's angrier, bulkier, and honestly, it's oozing more swagger than just about anything else sitting on a power cruiser showroom floor at the moment. So here's the million-dollar question, right? The one that's probably rattling around your skull. Did the engineers over in Akashi actually cook up something worth emptying your savings account for? Or is this whole thing just a nostalgia play wrapped in a fresh coat of ebony paint and a heftier MSRP? Stick around, because by the time we're done here, you'll see exactly why this machine's got the cruiser forums buzzing like a beehive. Let's kick things off with the main event. The reason most of you probably clicked this in the first place. The power plant. Tucked inside that chiseled, muscular chassis lives a reworked 1470cc liquid-cooled V-twin. And no, this isn't some anemic commuter motor dressed up in drag. We're looking at something like 108 horsepower paired with an absolutely grumpy 108 pound-feet of twist. And the kicker is, it shows up low in the rev band, right where cruiser enthusiasts actually live. This ain't a motor built to impress dyno queens or spec sheet warriors. Nah, it's built to pin you to the back of that seat the instant you roll into the throttle. Now, if you're over there thinking, ugh, another boring engine monologue, just hang on a sec, alright? Word on the street is Kawasaki spent serious time tuning the exhaust note specifically so it sounds downright menacing at idle. Like, your neighbors are gonna hate you levels of aggressive, and anyone who's spent time around cruisers knows sound matters, sometimes just as much as the horsepower number, and clearly somebody in Japan got that particular memo. But hey, all the ponies in the world don't mean squat if the chassis can't handle them. So let's talk about the skeleton holding this beast together. The frame is a redesigned high-tensile steel backbone, stiffer than the older Vulcan-derived platforms they used to lean on. It's built specifically to cope with that wallop of torque without getting all wobbly the second you tip into a bend. And that's actually where things get pretty intriguing, because cruisers aren't exactly famous for their cornering prowess, are they? Kawasaki seems dead set on rewriting that old straight-line hero cornering zero stereotype. Up front, you've got an inverted fork, while out back, there's a preload adjustable monoshock. The result? Noticeably sharper turn-in than most heavy cruisers in this bracket. Braking? Dual front discs with radial mount calipers, plus a single rear disc, and all of it tied into a cornering-sensitive ABS package. Funny how times change, huh? Remember when ABS on a cruiser was treated like heated leather seats in a sedan? Nice to have, but totally optional. Yeah, those days are toast. Even in the muscle cruiser world, safety electronics have finally caught up to the horsepower arms race. Speaking of electronics, let's peek at what greets you when you plop down in the saddle, because this right here is where the 2025 edition completely ditches its early 2000s ancestor. You're looking at a 4.3-inch color TFT dash, smartphone pairing for nav and calls, multiple riding modes, rain, road, and sport, plus switchable traction control. There's even an optional quick shifter for those who get a kick out of clutchless upshifts, which, come on, that never gets old, no matter how many bikes you've been through. But okay, here's the part that might actually make your eyebrows shoot up. Apparently, Kawasaki baked in an adaptive engine braking system that tweaks itself depending on your ride mode and lean angle. That's the kind of wizardry you'd normally find on a $100,000 superbike, not a bar-hopping cruiser. So clearly, someone over there decided this bike shouldn't just look menacing, it should be clever too. Now let's get into the styling, because let's be real, half the people buying cruisers care just as much about aesthetics as they do about performance, sometimes more. The design language is pure aggression. Blacked out engine casings, sharp LED lighting fore and aft, and a fuel tank that nods to the original mean streak, but stretched and sculpted for a modern eye. The riding position is relaxed, but not overly laid back. You're not lounging like you're in a lazy boy going down the interstate. Wheelbase sits around 65 inches, giving it that long, planted stance that cruiser fans absolutely absolutely eat up with a spoon. Oh, and here's a neat little detail. The dual slash-cut exhaust wears a smoked chrome finish that might just be the gnarliest looking exhaust setup Kawasaki slapped on a production cruiser in years. Alright, pause for a second, because I can already hear some of you crunching numbers in the back of your head. Sounds incredible, but what's this gonna set me back? Based on where it lands against direct rivals, the Harley Lowrider S, the Indian Chief lineup, industry chatter puts this puppy somewhere between 18 and 19.5 grand, depending on trim and color. And look, I get it, that's not pocket-linked. But when you stack that price against what Harley and Indian ask for similar muscle, Kawasaki might actually be sneaking in as the relative bargain of the bunch, which, if you've ever shopped against Harley's pricing strategy, feels almost refreshing, honestly. But here's where it gets even juicier, because this thing isn't just fighting on specs alone. Kawasaki appears to be angling for a younger crowd, folks who grew up watching grainy YouTube clips of the original Mean Streak, but never actually owned one since production ended back in '08. This new version feels specifically crafted to tug at those nostalgia heartstrings, while also showing newer riders that cruisers don't have to be slow, wallowy, or boring. Still, I gotta ask, can they really pull off pleasing both generations at once? The old guard who want raw, unadulterated attitude, and the new breed who want Bluetooth and rider aids. That's a tricky balancing act, and plenty of manufacturers have face-planted trying to do exactly that. So, does this thing actually nail it? Or is it trying to be all things to all people and ending up kinda meh? Well, based on everything we've laid out, the specs, the features, the pricing, it looks like Kawasaki might have found that sweet spot. Nasty enough for traditionalists, but current enough that you don't feel like you're riding a relic. Now, before I let you go, I gotta be straight with you about something pretty crucial. Everything I just walked you through, the engine numbers, the suspension, the styling bits, it's all rooted in a concept build. As of this recording, Kawasaki hasn't officially greenlit a production Mean Streak 1500 for 2026. This whole deep dive is cobbled together from leaked patent drawings, trademark renewals Kawasaki quietly filed, and insider speculation about where the cruiser power market is headed. So, is it plausible they drop something really close to this? Absolutely. The trademark filings are legitimate. The demand for a modern muscle cruiser is absolutely there. But until we get an official press release, treat everything here as a well-researched, educated guess, not gospel. Here's the real kicker though. If Kawasaki actually greenlights this exactly as outlined, does it have the chops to unseat Harley in the power cruiser pecking order? Or is this just another concept that'll fade into the abyss of motorcycle forum lore? That's a debate worth having, honestly, and I think you'll want to see how it shakes out. If you're curious how this potential Mean Streak revival squares up against Harley's Lowrider S, spec for spec, dollar for dollar, there's a video waiting for you right on your screen. Go check that one out next. Trust me, it answers a question you're probably already turning over in your head.